Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 2022 meeting of the Trespass Towing Advisory Board. I'm just going to go around and have everyone introduce themselves. I am Caitlin Thomas. I'm one of our co-chair staff coordinators. So Ben and I have been doing the towing board for a few years now, but yeah, if you need anything, I'm here.
So, Jim Kevin with the Arlington County Police Department, Courts Licensing Compliance Office.
Al Leach with Al's Towing and Storage.
Ben Aiken, staff liaison.
Mike Reynolds, A1 Tel.
I'm also with A1 Tel.
David Kennedy from Citizen Representative.
Graham Weinschenk, 8 to 4 member, Matthew Brown.
John O'Neill, Advanced Towing.
Gina Mullins, Advanced Towing.
You know how, yeah.
Okay, so we don't have a chair currently. Our previous chair is no longer a member on the board, but the seat rotates annually between our police, towing, and citizen representative. And this year it falls to our police department. So however we want to go about this, you all want to nominate and elect. I'm not sure if there's another like logistical means, but we need to get a chair and it's going to be a police department rep. So feel free.
I nominate James Tim.
Be a second. Someone second.
All in favor? Congratulations.
I think he's a great choice.
I don't know if you are going to be chair or not. Sorry, but I'm going to hand over the agenda. Hand over the meeting to you now. All along.
All right. So I guess the next thing on the list is the approving of the agenda. So review, call for additional items. Next part. Hopefully everybody had time to read the agenda.
Yeah, I put the new business, but feel free to, if anyone wants to add anything to new business. We can have it on here now so that we can work through it as we go.
As far as new business, you know, the code in Fairfax, Zone 8, Arlington, we're still getting less money than anywhere in the state. And it costs more to operate than anywhere in the state. And not try to cry a river, but you know, with COVID, people went to the grocery store, the fuel store, tried to buy a new car. It's gotten ridiculous. Just, you know, we ordered a bunch of new trucks and we used to finance ours for 48 months. We had to do it for 72 months now to keep the payments. Rollback was $105,000, $106,000. Now they're $165,000. The wheel lift, four-wheel drive or two-wheel drive used to be 75, 70, 78, it's 110,000. If you can even get them. We operate more a lot heavier. So even with that, our fuel bill is up 35%. And our profit's not 35%, I can promise you. So, you know, just to let you know that the direction we're heading as far as prices and what we're trying to do with the state. I've met with Chap Peterson, Senator Marston, Attorney General. You know, I've talked to them. They came down to the office, rode around with us, seen how we operate, looked at our expenses, and you know, it was eye-opening to them to know what it takes to operate its own business. My lot in Maryville, we paid $2 million for it. I don't know what, you know, they both own their property. I don't know what they did, but it's just the taxes alone and the payments, if you weren't lucky enough to get them 30 years ago, but it's just, it's astronomical. I just hope that we all work together. Fairfax, we went in with Fairfax and we had a really good working relationship. We had one of their accountants. This was in 2018. That's, you know, this guy was like the Leonardo da Vinci of accounting for Fairfax. He saved them millions of dollars on their fuel, millions of dollars on their electric, and all kinds of money. Well, he came to my office with 3 other towers. We opened our books to him. We opened our books. We showed them what we paid for trucks, what we paid for fuel, But we paid for workman's comp, we paid for everything, the 5 major things. And he came up, this was in 2013, I believe, or 2013, with $165 a tow. You know, we're talking 9 years ago, 10 years ago. And, you know, I just wish that when we all sit here, we can make an educated decision on what's fair for the towers and for the public. Nobody likes to get their car towed. I've gotten my car towed. They came down to my car on Halloween. My brother was using my car. I was mad, but luckily I knew the guy. Yeah, that's not what I'm about. You know, it's your second biggest investment, but, you know, Arlington is crazy. There's not enough parking. You know, they want everybody on the bike and it's not going to happen. Yeah. We get calls every day in Falls Church, Fairfax, Arlington. These restaurants that have 4 and 5 spaces, 6 spaces, that are paying $15,000 a month. None of their patrons can park there. They can't unload their food. They can't unload their furniture, whatever it is. You know, there's a lot more to it than, you know, than people see. And yeah, please keep an open mind and I can answer any questions you might have.
So if I remember correctly, Al, last time we met in person, we voted as a T-tab to bump it up to, what, I think it's 150, right? It's the state.
Was the state rate, yes, sir.
And I believe, didn't we, as a T-tab say to 150?
Yes.
The board didn't approve.
The board
Right,
did
so
not
we did
approve.
The board
the-
adopted
yeah,
yours,
the
the
county
board,
board.
the board adopted all the recommendations except for the rate change.
So I guess,
So we tried, but they essentially just wanted more. I'm sure they would love to look at your books, you know, that's kind of what they want. They just wanted more. That's what they're just essentially saying.
They kept using the word predatory. And that's a bad word. It's not predatory, it's survival. And, you know, the board, you know, I was embarrassed to be on the board last time, the way they treated me and they treated the other tower. You know, just predatory, illegal tows. And your documentation right here, it says most of the tows are towed for no permits and customer parking only. You know, if you don't have a permit on your car and you live in these $1 million condos, you're going to get towed because somebody needs a parking space. You know, that's, you know, 63% of it's customer parking only and no permit. And, you know, it's in their own graphs and they won't look at their own, what they have. I just hope that we can have more than a couple of minutes to talk to them this time. You know, so we don't have to spend all the money in litigation down in Richmond, which that's killing us too. That's another expense that we have to add.
Yeah, you can definitely make the motion. Yeah. We'll do the same. We can take it to the board again. And feel free to, you know, go on your own accord to reach out to the board members. You know, that's obviously, you know, how to. So
I'm a little rusty on this chair thing, but yeah. So I guess the motion is to raise the rates from 135 to
State rates.
rate of 150.
yeah, we can just jump. I mean, yeah,
Can we do that?
do whatever you want. Yeah. I mean, just,
I mean, I know we're
Yes.
discussing around this.
no, it's fine. Fine.
If I can say one more thing, ask John O'Neill and Mike Reynolds are the biggest guys in here. They tell most of, they'd like to have a minute or two to say a couple things, if that's okay.
I'd recommend, just if I could, point of privilege, recommend a motion, and then you can have the discussion and you can open public comment if you want to discuss that. So,
yes. Perfect.
Sorry.
no, it's okay. That way something is on the table. That way something is on the table and then you can discuss it and then, yeah, but
To talk about it, then approve the actual topic, right? And then we can open it up and then you can open it up.
you've got a motion, needs a second. We'll get it clicking along, guys.
It's been a little while.
I know.
Educate them, please.
Guess we can't say it's internet trouble.
No. Okay.
Like, the next step would be to take a vote.
So next step would be to open the floor for discussion.
So you second and you guys approve to talk about it and then talk about it.
All right, so floor is open for discussion.
There's not one facet of my business that has not gone up. Every single facet is, I've given Caitlin plenty of different Examples of that during, when the fuel price recently just went crazy. I had to make a choice whether to pay our fuel bill, which tripled in cost, or make health insurance payment. And it just happened when my employees had cancer. So it was a tough decision. So I came down to the county to discuss that. And I was told that there's always Obamacare. So that was, for the almost 20 years now that I've been in business, I don't think that I've ever heard something worse. And the predatory towing that was talked about earlier, there is absolutely no predatory towing, none whatsoever. There's predatory parking, but not towing. That fee that is generated from towing cars illegally for people who are trespassing needs to be commensurate to cover our costs. There's something not. I've remained in business over the years because I was out real estate by my family here in Arlington County. And I borrowed against that real estate to remain in business because I'm so far invested. I own my land in Arlington County. I bought here to do business here, just like other businesses do. Now you're getting ready to discuss opening it up further to 10 miles, which would do nothing but put a huge burden on the consumer to go 10 miles, let's say down the 95 corridor at the wrong time. What's that? Maybe $100, $150 Uber ride. It's more than the towing fee. When people get their cars towed in Arlington for years, when there was other towers down on 4 Mile Run where Bill used to be, or where I'm at now by Boston, the person who got their cars towed only had to travel 5-10 minutes, small fee, $10, $15 fee by cab. You add that to the tow fee, it's not that much burdensome on the consumer. But now you're talking about going 10 miles outside the county, give me about $300 to go pick your car up. And for a guy that's going green that wants to save money, that wants to save on fuel, the tow trucks get about 4 to 5 miles a gallon. So it's going to be an additional cost for us, probably 15, 20, $25 to go that far out of the industry to spend that fuel and to come back. And I know if it was me and I was going down that corridor, taking the car down there, I simply wouldn't tow during the rush hour times. Trucks would be stationed and sit just like what other towers do. And you would operate during the off peak hours to travel. But the people going to pick up their cars are going to be going when they get off work, or they're going to be going when they wake up, traveling during peak hours. Those fees are going to be astronomical to go get a car as opposed to staying in Arlington and raising the fee to a commensurate to what cost of living increase. The fee hasn't been raised in over a decade. And the only reason it was raised for the astronaut fees because I went to Richmond and had them raised so we could get the extra fees. And anyway, it's time. I mean, every other jurisdiction in Northern Virginia is at that rate. And it puts us at a competitive disadvantage. That's all I really have to say. Thank you.
I'm not on the board, but I'm happy to speak on that topic if that's okay. Okay, all right. Yeah, I didn't come prepared to speak on that topic, but I would say, historically, Arlington has lagged behind the other jurisdictions in raising the fee limits. That history goes back, I don't know how many people here other than the tellers might know the history, but it goes back 25 years, possibly 30 years. Arlington has just historically resisted raising fee limits when Fairfax, Alexandria, even the city of Falls Church have in some cases, I think, prior to Arlington doing it. We have had to resort because of that to going to the state where the towing industry has been somewhat successful in getting legislative business approved. And I think that's come at the expense in certain cases of taking some power away legislatively from the county. for counties. Not because we want to do it that way, but it just turns out that way. So I think we would like to handle a raise at the local level, and not have to go back to the state again to do it that way. I think it's worse for the county, it's worse for the citizens when we have to do it that way. If there's some way that we can agree on a fair increase locally, I think we prefer it that way. I'm sure the board.
Hey, Caitlin, this is Jason Berg. I'm not on the board. I'm just listening. Can I add something, or is that not allowed?
You are a public as well, so I think you can. Let me see if I can get it louder. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I'm a captain in the police department. I work with Jim Toomey. I'll just add that the police department recently renegotiated its contract with Redmond's because of all the things that I just heard said here about fuel costs and everything else. So we were more than happy to do that. We amended it, and I think we came to a good agreement. So I think what they're saying makes sense.
Caitlin, may I speak as well to add to that conversation?
Sure, go ahead.
I'd like to point out just for the record that for years, John O'Neill here, who has spoken, has claimed that he has no obligation to follow the Arlington County Code to allow his victims to review the contract that authorizes the tow. It's been recorded several times where he claims that he doesn't have to do that. And he's been recorded recently claiming that he has a gentleman's agreement with Arlington County. So if John O'Neill is going to speak about raising the rates, I believe he should address the issue of whether or not he believes that tow companies should adhere to the Arlington County Code, and whether he'd like to explain whether or not, or what the details are of the gentleman's agreement that he claims to have with Arlington County. That is all.
So I'll gladly answer it real quick. So the Attorney General actually came after me. I don't know if you know it or not, Todd Herring. And I really gave him a tail whipping in court there. He climbed through really climbed through my whole business aspect going back years. And they didn't find anything. So I really don't know what you're talking about, man. But the gentleman's agreement, I think that you're referring to, is a 10-minute allowed time that we allowed somebody to park because it wasn't in state code. It's not in any code whatsoever. So I just allowed them, to park there because I got permission from one of my contractors. That's what you're talking about. I had to actually go get permission to do that, and they agreed to. So it worked out for both sides. But I'm definitely not above the law. Like I said, the Attorney General climbed through my tail pretty good, and it came out that he was really short. So.
Yeah, I'd like to speak. First, thanks I appreciate being in this group. I get it. I mean, I don't know your businesses. I don't know. I mean, tough business. I get it. So I probably, when we vote, I'm probably going to abstain on the rate. I mean, I'm probably going to abstain because I'm not going to vote for a rate increase because I don't think that's appropriate as the citizen's voice. But I totally respect where you're coming from. You guys know your books, and it's a fair discussion. Second thing I want to say is I want to be really open-minded and objective as a citizen representative on this board. You guys aren't the most popular guys in Arlington. I mean, that's just the way it is. No one wants to be towed, but I wanted to try to just be very open-minded to. But if I do lean into a citizen's voice and am a little bit agitated at times, just give me a little grace in those situations. Third thing I wanted to say was I do want to speak under new business community concerns. I'm not going to talk about those now. I'll wait till that part of the agenda. I just want to bring up one point on raising rates, and which I think is a legitimate thing for the county board or for whoever. A tow is a really regressive tax. I've been towed, and I just, I don't want to pay $135 or $150, but I can pay it. there's other people who get towed who it's going to be a lot harder to afford $135 or $150. And that's probably beyond the scope of this discussion. But I do think it should be part of the minutes, part of the notes, just to say that, you know, a tow for someone living, you know, in Arlington who's making a couple $100,000 a year it's a pain in the ass, but it's just an inconvenience. For someone who's working an hourly job, parks their car, runs in real quick to get something for whatever reason, because they're in a rush, they're scrambling, they're a single mom or whatever. And then they come back and their car's towed. That's a hardship. And I think, again, I don't know if there's a solution. I don't think there is any such thing as graduated rates. You know, I think that would be almost an impossible system to implement. But I just do think it's important to note that some people are affected more disproportionately than others when they're towed.
Can I make a comment? I understand your concern. I understand the gentleman who just spoke was concerned. The county has the ability to restrict some of the issues they have. You spoke about it. Somebody got out of their car and 2 minutes later they get towed. Well, the county can set up a limit, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You take a picture before, take a picture after, to show, which is the county right now requires us to show the violation, which hey, it's great. We take pictures before, we test the vehicle. So if there's any damages, and plus it shows the violation as well. So the county has the ability to do it. But in the meanwhile, you know, as a town, we are suffering right now. We're not getting enough. And I totally understand. Look, nobody likes what we do, but we're just doing the job.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure the job is done right, not because somebody else doesn't do it right, the whole industry being penalized. You know, the state came up with the code. I mean, we'll be happy with the state code. Especially with the price of fuel and the price of rent, everything has gone up 33%. So everybody knows, we all go to the grocery store and see how expensive it is. So the county has the ability to do it, but at the same time, they have to work with us. If somebody in violation, go after them. You want 15 minutes for somebody walking out of the shopping center, or 10 minutes or whatever? Legislate that, come up with that. It's fine. We don't have any issue with it. I don't. I can't speak for everybody else.
Property owners don't.
Yeah, so Bill, the state code didn't give permission to do that, to give them a time limit. It's trespassing.
It is stated in Arlington County Code 14.3-6. It is specified within 10 minutes of the trespassing vehicle. It is specified in Arlington County Code.
Okay, so
So
let me
it is specified.
Right. No, I think I just want to kind of like, let's bring this back. So I see what you're saying, but we do need authority. We do need state law to change to give us those powers. So, but yeah.
I'm just suggesting.
I know. I just wanted to let you.
Do you mind if so I can't speak for the board as a whole, but I can, you know, I work for one of the board members and can speak of my conversations with him. I think there is, if you were to pass, you know, the rate increase at this meeting, I think it's highly unlikely that it would be adopted by the board without any kind of engagement.
Of course.
But I think that there is latitude over the next year to engage and to come up with a system that works better. I mean, the side that we hear is constituents and consumers. And, you know, I mean, I talked to somebody who has their car towed at least once a week. And, you know, I mean, I've heard every story, and whether or not they're illegal tows or not illegal tows, there are situations that suck, frankly.
Well, every tow should be a legal tow.
I think that we should work, you know, I mean, I think in our mind, you know, we would love to work together over the next year on a, you know, situation that works better for everyone. And we hear you about, I mean, it makes sense of, you know, with inflation and gas prices and everything. I mean, it makes sense that your business.
Thank you.
So, you know, I think we're looking to have that engagement with you over the next year and find something that works better.
Back in the day, I used to be able to, if somebody got their car towed, they were destitute, didn't have any money to pick up the car, and they're sitting in my lot, upset. I had the ability to be give the car back to them or cut them a break of some sort. It's my tow. You know, the money's coming into our company. But it got to a point where, like, since the county hadn't raised the fee in 15 years, that mechanism's gone. So I can't sit there and say, well, sorry, I mean, I used to be a huge sucker for a lady with a baby or an elderly person. I can attest to that. Elderly people used to come to our place all the time. You know, I would see my grandfather get towed, so I'd cut them the car back or cut them a break. There's no mechanism to do that anymore, none whatsoever. So,
Why is there no mechanism for that?
there's no money, there's no profit.
Oh, it's just, oh, it's straight, okay.
Yeah, there's no profit. I mean, if there's, you're able to, you know, turn a small profit, then I had that ability, but there's no more ability to do that. And, you know, trespass laws, trespass laws. That's-
And please understand, we haven't had a raise in 10 years. Can you imagine if you hadn't got a raise, or anybody in this place hasn't got a raise in 10 years? Now they have to do it. And I don't do a lot of private individual tows, but I've been in the business almost 40 years. Now you have to do quantity, not quality. You have to tow more to survive. Fairfax, we went down there and they changed the rules. They gave us the rates. They strengthened the regulations. We tow less cars, but we make more money. And everybody's happy. The consumers, the complaints are down. At Fairfax, they have less than, 1/10% when they tow 55,000 cars. The trash man gets more complaints than the towers does.
And
When you haven't got a raise in 10 years, you couldn't survive. Especially when you walk into this building and they're putting new marble everywhere. And, you know, it's just, you gotta think with an open, an open mind that it gets a little frustrating. You know, the tower that goes out here that bids on the police contract, outbids me and outbids everybody else. He can go, the police just said they're gonna give him a raise. He doesn't, he has the same bills that we do. He pays the same fuel, the same trucks. And you have to be fair, and that's why tempers get a little flared.
Yeah.
You were towed, maybe we'd like to hear your story. Maybe that's the reason, but, there's survival, and that's what we're trying to do.
Just can I ask a question then, just to understand the whole workings of the role of this board. If this was voted on across this board and the vote was to increase from 135 to 150, then that would go, the county would have to approve it. So could there be something along the lines of an increase, voting on an increase, but also, I think you're kind of hinting at it, Graham, that there could be some kind of more robust than just talking about an increase, also talking about hardship cases, that could also then be on the county's docket. Because if they, I don't know what the mood of the county board is, but the mood of the county board is, we don't want to vote for them because it's not popular with the citizens. But if there was some kind of, really, meaningful attachment around a way to a complaint system that works, because I will say the complaint system doesn't work. At least that was my experience. Also, a way to address hardship cases. Maybe there's a fund that Arlington puts aside. So, John, if you, are a nice guy and say, Granny, please take your car, but then you have recourse to recover it from the county. I mean, I'm just saying, if you start to do things like that, then maybe a rate increase is
Let
something.
me tell you why that didn't work years ago. I'll tell you, because I was here at the inception of all that. And it was my suggestion back then. Somebody makes a complaint now, it immediately becomes a criminal investigation. See what the tower's done wrong or illegally. It's not putting you together with me or Mike or somebody to have a conversation and discuss why your car was towed, why we have a contract, why you actually were towed. You might get that answer from the police department, but it's not until they've got their statistics to make the complaint. It's more about statistics than it was about satisfying the complaint. Complainant. I know for a fact, because I lived it, and I had this conversation with all the previous ACT inspectors. They all agreed. It's just, it never turned out. The county board wanted their complaints and wanted to say, you're bad. It's less than 1/2% of people that get their cars towed complain, yet none of them are willful or egregious in nature at all. None of them are willful or egregious. They're all technical. They're all technical there. So, and that's my 2 cents.
Dave,
We try, we,
I was just gonna speak to how he was talking about the package and everything. So yes, we can do that. And it actually would work, logistically, like we're talking about, holding more meetings next year. So we could go back and forth with actually creating the package we want to take to the board, or you guys want to take to the board. So that's.
and there is a route, it's called civil court. And, when a person comes in, every time we tow a car, there's a scratch. Well, how did it get rust on it? We just towed the car 10 minutes ago and it's a scratch, it's rust. So we tell them to call the police officer and make a report. Well, they know it's going to be a frivolous report. Then, so they don't call the police. Then in Fairfax, we said, well, let's just have a board meeting every 90 days and people that can bring their complaints, citizens can bring their complaints, and we can vote on it, whether they get a refund, which has happened a lot of times. In Fairfax County, we sit there and I wrote a few checks. The customers come in and it probably could be right, Back in the day when everybody carried cash, now everybody carries a credit card. They say they went in CVS. We called the tow in 10 minutes before they went back and got a pack of lifesavers. And it happens all the time, and that's what we deal with. So.
I would guess, again, you guys are the experts, but I would guess there are frivolous complaints. There's complaints that are kind of borderline.
Yes, sir.
There's complaints that maybe the consumer was correct. And then I also think, and then I would just create one more category, hardship, because I do think I still will say a single mom who gets towed, who legitimately got towed, it would be great if there was a way to take care of her.
To be honest with you, we do it all the time. I know Bill does it. I know, because I own the storage lot, so a lot of people store with me, and I know they do it all the time. There was a lady the other day, not going to say her nationality, got her car towed, parked in a fire lane. No, excuse me, parked in a fire lane. She came there and she called her husband. You could hear an argument. She got down on her hands and knees, was crying. I told my dispatcher, it wasn't even, it's my storage yard. It wasn't my tow. I said, release it and fill the car up, because I know she's going to have enough problems when she gets home to her husband. And we deal with that all day long. And another thing, children in the cars we tow don't get picked up. They're, abandoned cars, no tags, wrecks, they blown motors, they take the tires off of them. You see them everywhere.
Yeah.
We still have to pay to get rid of those cars. We have to take the fuel, the AC, the Freon out of it. That's another expense, and this will be the last thing I say, they're really beating the towers in Arlington, and that's why I moved out. I got an office in Falls Church and Maryfield and Loudon because I couldn't put up with it. They didn't, none of them even thought anything about the towers. They wanted to defund the police in some states. Look what that got them. Go ahead and get rid of the record companies and see what traffic you have.
I'd like to thank
That's it.
everybody for the discussion. We're going to close the discussion for right now. Next part, we take a vote.
Yes, vote.
So
How you want to recommend it to the county.
to vote to recommend raising the rates up to the state rate of 150 to follow state code rate up to 150. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Abstained?
I'd like to abstain. I just, again, I mean, if that's the motion, I can't support that motion, but I could, if there is a commitment to the next discussion, talking about, adding some attachments to that could actually,
Definitely motion it again, that's.
okay.
For sure. So, which way did you vote?
Oh.
Okay. So, Dave abstained.
Abstain.
Okay, got it.
How did you vote? James? How did you vote?
4. The next thing on the agenda is new business. Review complaint towing data. I mean, everybody's got the data. Is there anything that you should review or that wants to go over anything? How we can move into the storage lot boundary?
Just don't, the data pretty much shows, most of the tows, 63% were permit, which I don't know if you have a house or they have enough permits in Arlington per street, but if you don't have a permit on your car, it's not displayed or customer parking only, you get towed. That's something that you should be mature enough to you're mature enough to get your driver's license and have stickers on your plates, you know, that's 63% of why the vehicle is towed. And most, and the others handicapped, I don't feel sorry for the people who are parking handicapped with no permit. We towed a bunch of them where the permits fell down, we give them back. I know Bill does for a fact, and I know John does for a fact. We still have to pay our drivers, but we get the cars back.
So what is there a official process as to how a complaint's supposed to be processed?
Yeah, so the complaint gets generated to the county website, and then gets pushed over to our office, the sports license and compliance office. We then will contact the tower and get the information for the tow to find out what happened. As with anything the police do, there's always a variant of the story. So we need the evidence to be able to investigate the complaints to either find the tow was legit or that there might have been an error somewhere within the tow from either during the tow itself or maybe after the tow was complete. And so what we'll do is that's how we basically generate it. Email a letter to the person whose car was towed as well as to the tow company, advising them of our outcome at the time that we do the investigation.
So these 45 complaints, if I'm reading this correctly, there were 45 complaints in 2022, 29 in 2021.
Correct.
And what, do we have statistics on the resolution to these complaints? In other words, 100% were resolved, or, X% were resolved this way, Y% were resolved that way? Is there?
Oh, so if you look at, I guess I'm missing a header.
Yes. So if you look at the 2022 complaint, this is yes.
Yes, so if you look at the last column where it says closed and the findings. So go to the 2021. I think it's on the back of the, where we updated the charge,
It's this one.
like the 2021 complaints.
It's the one that you have right there.
This,
Yep.
Yeah, so
It's the third column from the right, it'll have what the outcome of the tow complaint.
so. is
Ones
that-
that aren't closed yet are, we're either waiting for information from one of the two parties.
So in violation of county code means that was in favor of the person who was towed.
Correct. That is,
Okay.
yes, during the course of the investigation, something,
I see.
some error was.
And in that, what's the, is it just a refund of the
Still,
towing fee in that
unfortunately,
situation?
we're not, as a police department, we can't force the tower to refund any money. But most of the towers, when we do find them in violation, most of the time will do right by the customer.
Shouldn't that just be a no-brainer? I mean,
If they agree with the violation of the code, or you might want to go before a judge and get a judge to make an opinion about that case.
doesn't that just, if we start going, I mean, I think that might be part of, again, I'm just thinking longer term. I mean, I think I have a 2-year appointment on this. So she changed me on. But, that seems like it's something that, to go to court, no one wants to go to court. You guys don't want to go to court. I know I don't want to go to court. And if it's,
It depends upon what it is though. So I had 12 people come to testify that we had towed their car illegally, and it turned out that they, all 12 parked their cars illegally, got their cars towed, and I was right. So
Unfortunately, it just comes down to regulation. I mean, we go as far as we can with the complaints, but we can't force the money to be returned.
I couldn't believe their actual testimony was, I parked my car where I shouldn't have, and I got my car towed. I heard that 12 times.
but then there's something wrong with it.
Right, so
There's something wrong with this report then.
Right, if it says in violation of county code, it might not be something wrong with the tow. It might be something wrong with something that happened after the tow.
Technical issue
like, you know,
Sign might come on
the
this.
contract, the signage, not calling it in within the 10-minute required
Anything in the
time frame,
code, yeah.
that would be in violation of the county code. It might not necessarily mean that the tow itself was a problem. It just means somewhere along the long string of this, something occurred.
I was forced to give it to feedback one time, and I went out for no sign. I went to the location and I found the sign with dirt on the bottom of it and a bush right next to it. But I already refunded the money, and that sign stood there for a decade.
Good, Jim. You're also talking about remedies, and in the code it specifies enforcement. Like if we had an enforcement mechanism, the enforcement would be against the tower or the driver or the operator, right? Or the tow company. And nowhere does it specify in here or speak to remedies for the consumer. So I think that that's what you're driving at is actually a consumer-based remedy. So as you're thinking about, formulating for future consideration, it's more of a consumer remedy than it is enforcement against the towers. And I don't want to speak to the towers, but they don't want to get dragged to court. But so too do they not want to. John's talked about mediation, right? There's alternative forms of resolving the disputes that maybe we can consider as part of this whole panoply of recommendations. But that's just for your information.
Any other comments about the complaint data? All right. Moving on. Next point is the storage lot boundary expansion.
So this is, if you'll look on the very last page, we're proposing a code change. Because right now in the code, the boundary is, storage lot boundary is 3.25 miles. But as everyone knows, the Dillon rule, it's not in the state code. So this is essentially a code reconciliation. Because I'll just see at the top, the Code of Virginia supporting information, that's where, in this section, it speaks to 10 miles. So regardless of, we can speak to pros and cons and whatnot, but this is a reconciliation within state code because there's nowhere that we can enforce a 3.25 mile boundary for state code.
It's consistent with recommendations from the county's attorney.
How did they do it for years then when you had the cars in the county?
Yeah.
I mean, I faulted,
I got the law changed, man.
We just realized
I
that
faulted me and a few other towers, so that
It was before they added in the provision for the permitting system outside of planning.
yeah, no, it was added with the planning district 8 permitting thing. But I went back and I saw in 2016 is when it increased from 3 to 3.25 miles, but I couldn't find where the 3 miles came from. And I only went back to 2008, but so it must have been in there beforehand. But yeah, so the 10 mile came into play with the permitting system.
I can promise you, if that goes into effect, it hasn't happened anywhere else, you're gonna have to act for police
Yeah.
to take care, because they're gonna be storing cars in Alexandria, DC.
Well, it does, I think the state code says that the car has to be stored in the Commonwealth.
Well, okay,
But you still be going down to Route 1 in Woodbridge,
right.
get a car and install
Well,
You think consumers are gonna be
I'm
mad?
not gonna bring it back.
Mad now when they have 4 tow lots that are within 3.5 miles, 6 tow lots within 3.5 miles. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of, I don't know how to say it. You wanna talk about predatory tows then?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have everybody storing in gas stations because Arlington County can't control it, then Fairfax County won't be able to control it, or, it's-
Well, we
Do you know if
have,
Alexandria have any provisions?
So Fairfax County does it from 10 miles from point of tow.
Yeah.
And so Fairfax used to require the towers to keep the cars inside the county. And I went down to Richmond and I had the law changed so that the cars could go out of Fairfax into Arlington. And then Arlington, when they first put the original code together, allowed the cars to go 3 miles. And in 2006, they could go 3 miles. Where that number came up from, I don't know. I assumed it was because guys in Merrifield had lots out there and,
We're right by the
that board
metro.
didn't want people adding insult to injury by going, 10 miles to go pick up their car down Route 1 at Woodbridge.
I would just like to add, I'm not looking at that state code section, but I was part of the group that I guess made that happen. And the intention of that language was to make it elective for the localities to regulate up to 10 miles. Not exactly 10 miles. I think it was to honor.
Stay within 10 miles.
Yeah, I think it was to honor, Arlington's existing code at the time, which was 3 miles, was in the Arlington County Code prior to 2008 at 3 miles.
They were also looking at storage lots and basing them on where the cars would go. In the Bailey's Crossroads, Seven Corners area, or Fairfax, there was no storage facility. So my line at Fifth Road was, and Bill's line down on 4 Mile, and in Crystal City were the best alternative options for somebody to get towed as opposed to going, out to past Merrifield or down south to Springfield.
Caitlin can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this correction to our county code is just putting us.
Right, it says may.
This is may require.
You
don't have to.
It's putting us into compliance with the state.
No, it says you may require,
may
not that you
require.
have to.
And this, the one I was given,
It is because it's the fact that it says that we have to, storage, right now, our code says that storage facilities shall be located within 3.25 miles.
Right.
But that is nowhere in the state code. So we cannot enforce that.
All right.
Can I ask one question? If the state code says you can have to charge 150,
It says
or may, is that what it is? I mean,
Yes.
can't we change this, can't we change this to,
Well, that's what
we're voting on it.
so that's one of the things I was thinking of. If
Right.
we're gonna make it compliant with state code, I think the county board would be more pressured if we're gonna make it heavy on the county, if we're gonna make it saying, look, we're gonna be in compliance with state code for this, why not this? I think that would be.
I would
I don't know if you
also
put it-
like to just add, it's maybe irrelevant, but I think in some adjacent jurisdictions, I don't remember what the exact distance is, but I think there is a distance limitation in Alexandria City's code. I believe there's a distance limitation in Ulster City's code, also at 3 miles, if I'm not mistaken.
Fairfax City, you
Fairfax
have
City too.
you have to keep them, Fairfax City, you have to keep them in the
City.
city. Take them out.
If you would like, Jim, given, I guess, some ambiguity, you could just motion to table the discussion, have staff go back, research this and come back with a clarified set of guidelines or for recommendation. It's up to you.
No, so I guess the motion is to table this to the next meeting,
Second.
and then we'll have county staff give us a better explanation into this. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right. Next one is community concern. So,
Okay, I know I've had a chance to speak, so I don't want to regurgitate some of the things I've said. I guess I just had towing is a necessary evil. I mean, you guys are, as far as I can tell, are good guys, good businessmen, good business people, and you're just trying to earn a living. And so I mean, I respect that. You guys shouldn't be the enemy. But you're perceived sometimes as the enemy just because you're in a kind of like the IRS or whoever is flattering. I'm not comparing you to the IRS, but you're just in one of those businesses that, that's going to be, you're going to take knocks from the community. I'm curious. I'll use Gold's Gym as an example. I've heard of just an anecdote where someone was legitimately parked at Gold Gym and they were towed. I know of another situation where someone parked in a spot that was for a business, went to another business first and then to that, intending to go to the second business, and they were towed. I'm curious, in situations like that, how does Gold Gym, I mean, I don't even know how a situation like that could happen, but the business community, they need to have, and I guess they contract with you guys, and they need to have, like you said, the five, if I have 5 spots for my restaurant, they should be filled by 5 customers. And so if someone is not in, you know, going into that restaurant, you know, it's a legitimate tow. But is there a sense of how businesses feel about you all? I mean, are they just like, okay, contract with you, Al, go do it. You know what? I don't even want to know. Or is there some sense of, hey, I'm the business person. I see someone parking in my lot, and then I call you, and then you come and tow. Where I'm saying, I like that situation, but I don't like the situation where you came and towed by accident. So, I mean, are businesses in the community
So
totally on board with how towing works in the county?
So the Gold's Gym lot that you referred to, testimony in the AG trial was in 22 years, there's not been one person that was towed wrongfully or illegally, not one. That lot's unique because there's businesses that separate from themselves, that have their own business. What happens is people park there, and the businesses that are across the street don't have any patrons. They don't have any parking lots for their patrons, not one space. All those businesses that are across the street have that one parking spot. The reason why they're able to get a business license and operate in the county is because they're located within 1,000 feet of the metro. So they park there all day long and then go across the street, or go to try to avoid the fee, which is a very nominal fee, to park and go over to Boston Commons Mall. It happens all day long. You go over there and watch it, it happens all day long. But as far as somebody being towed that went into Gold's Gym, they might have gone into Gold's Gym, they come out, and they go over to Boston Commons Mall to avoid the fee, they get their cars towed. But the owner of that lot, she worked with us for years. It wasn't just, hey, go ahead and go tow. I meet with her probably once every 3 months. The lot is marked. We marked the lot for them. We marked those spaces individually, actually, over there. And I did it for the county where I didn't have to, in hopes that we would get a fee increase last time. That's right. I forgot about that. In hopes to get a fee increase last time, I went and I stenciled the entire parking lot so that people wouldn't park there, go to the Mosaic Park with their kids and get their cars towed. And it slowed it down, but it still was like, I mean, it still was rampant illegal parking all day long. And they kept leaving the crappy diapers for the babies in the parking lot, which I had to go clean up, which is horrible. But I did that in hopes the county would give us a fee increase where we're going to slow down the towing. I'm going to mark this up, and they created there was 5 hot spots in Arlington County. And me and Mike back in the day.
Gentleman's agreement. Let's have a gentleman's agreement instead of the law.
That's what I got from my client. Thanks, man. So, like I said, it's not just, hey, go happy, be towed. It works, and there's a reason why our clients love us. And we solve parking lots. We don't just, go in there and put a sign up. That's why there's no predatory towing. We have insurance, we have trucks, we have lots, we have contracts, we have long-loan contracts. It's not just randomly have at it. Well, yeah, Mike, I'm curious to hear what you guys say.
Well, I was just gonna add, most businesses that wind up towing in one way or another have gone through an evolution of sending employees out, or they've gone out themselves when they've had a parking issue and they said, whoever's parking, hey, private parking lot, please don't park here. This might happen for months or years. Very oftentimes, I spoke with someone today where this literally happened today. They told somebody, please don't park there, and they cursed them out. And then at that point, the business owners often get to the point where they go, okay, I'm done with doing that. I've done it enough. It's not solving my problem. When I tell someone, hey, don't park there, you might get towed, or I'll tow you, and give them a warning, helping them avoid a expensive tow fee. then they get cursed out. And when they get to that point, they often call us and say, we're done, please, tow cars that won't belong.
It's always the last option.
So, so you guys have contracts with the businesses, are those fee contracts, fee-based contracts?
Well, no. The state law provides that the towed car owner pay fees associated with the cost of reclaiming a towed car. So there's no money that exchanges hands between the tow business and the property owners. It's just the way that the Virginia state law works.
Well, that's my first, again, it's my first thing about, I'm just curious how businesses, because I can't imagine, and again, my situation after I was towed, I went to the business whose spot I was in. I said, I went to the bank and then I was planning on coming into your store second. Did you call them to tow me or what happened? And so they were really apologetic. I mean, and I just said, this isn't good for your business. I mean, if you're, if I'm being towed in this situation.
Most of the time, if in a perfect world, I think they would prefer not to do it. But like I said, there's usually a years-long evolution. In some cases, it's shorter, of them trying to control it in other ways. And they just get to the point where they go, enough is enough. The land is so expensive in Arlington for the businesses. The parking spaces, I think we did a calculation one time, determined that the average commercial parking space in Arlington might be worth $30,000. And I think that was a number of years ago. It's probably more than that. When you factor that in and the cost that the businesses pay for those spaces and, needing every customer that they can get, they often reach the conclusion we're better enforcing our restrictions.
So the business community is pretty much on board with what you all do.
Usually the Chamber of Commerce, the consensus from the Chamber of Commerce is that they are in favor of businesses who believe that they need to enforce health and giving them that power.
Second community concern, I would just, I think we'll have chances to talk to this many times. I mean, if you go to Nextdoor, the Nextdoor app, if you go to Facebook, you go to any social media, I mean, there are constant stories about tows that the individual felt was illegal tow. I mean,
What makes it illegal?
I'm not an expert. I'm just saying that's.
I mean, it's a good word. Predatory towing. It's a good buzzword for the media and that Arlington town. They love to use that word, but yet where's the illegal part?
All I'm trying to say is that is the buzz at times.
Yes, sir.
And it's not a good vibe. It's not a good vibe. And I do think, again, my hope on this, being part of this, is that there can be things to do that you use the term remedy. I think, just situations that can get, that's just not a good vibe. It's not a good vibe. It's, the stories are, some of them are really, maybe, maybe 90% of the time it's someone just, amping up the volume.
The biggest complaint on that app is I was only parked there for a minute.
Yeah.
That's the biggest complaint.
But there's, again, there are situations where it's just not, it's not cool. It wasn't a good tow. I believe there's situations where it's not a good tow. And I think that just really fires people up.
There's a way to change it. I do all the towing for the Pentagon. I have for years. These are admirals, colonels, Marines, CIA. We tow their cars 3 or 4 times. They know that we can only charge $135. They're late for a meeting, they're gonna pay. They're admirals and colonels and generals.
Yeah.
They just take the chance, and that's what happens. Baltimore, they were towing 20,000 cars a year one time. They raised the rates to $325. Now they tow 7,500.
Yeah.
People are gonna take the chance for the 135,
Yeah.
150. But when they see the signs that say $325, they're not taking that chance. And it's happening all over.
When the businesses go out of business in Arlington, it's for the people that have that quick they want the quick spot to put, Mike can speak to it better because he answered that for years. I don't.
Well, I was just gonna say something maybe to your point that this was said in some meetings a few years ago. I don't know how Detective Toomey feels about it now, if he feels the same, but I think somebody asked a question about of all of the complaints, the ones that were determined to be not in compliance with the code, what were the circumstances? Did, tow drivers go and willfully do something wrong and tow a car? And I think the commentary that was made, this might be adding something to it, but something to the effect of, I think the police chair of the tab at that time said, none of the tows were, in their opinion, willful or intentional. Of the very few, and I think at that time there were 7 or 11 in that year that were determined out of, over 10,000, maybe it was 15 or 18,000 tows at that time, that were determined to be not in compliance with the code. And when they were asked, what was the nature of those, they said they weren't willful or intentional. They were technicalities, something wrong with the sign. A sign was missing, didn't contain the police number on the bottom of the sign. The letters on the sign weren't exactly 3 inches. Something like that, but there were no tows that were, willful or intentional. I think, I don't know, again, if they would agree, but I think that probably makes up the same case could be made for all the tow statistics in years since then. However, I'm not saying every tow out there, wouldn't be, there wouldn't be one where a tow driver did something intentional to tow a car wrongfully. I'm not sure if that's been found or how many, but I think it's very few and far between. I just wanted to tell you that so you have some statistics like that to choose.
If this over the course, if I see the statistics, if there are 15,000 tows a year and the statistics aren't lying, and we've determined there's 75 bad tows out of 15,000. First off, that says a lot of good. You guys are doing your job well. But those 75, there's got to be recourse on those 75.
But is that 75 all been found to be illegal or egregious or?
I'm just saying.
Because I mean,
out of 15,000 tows, if there's 75 that were egregious, that says you guys are doing a great job. But let's agree that there could be 75 bad tows over the course of a year. And in those situations, maybe that could alleviate a lot of the goodwill to just say, you know what? Every now and then we get it wrong. That would be really helpful. And just to have a remedy for those 75 bad tows without having to go to court.
So really good. But I would love to just talk to you. Like, I'd rather, instead of you making the complaint because I read the complaint, and I remember talking to you that day for a very long time. And I'm really glad that you didn't assault my son that day because that was close. But
he got out of the truck and tried to assault me.
No, I saw the video. So.
I don't think we need to do anything.
So
So I'm just, but I would
move on to the next topic.
I would love to talk to you as opposed to just calling Jim and making a complaint and let him do his police work. I'd rather, wouldn't you feel a lot better if you talked to me about it? And showed you the contract and told you why you were towed and who had you towed as opposed, I'd make 75 calls a year.
We're gonna move on to if nobody else has any other comments on it. We're gonna move on to, anybody have anything else for new business? Yep, all right. We're gonna open it up for public comment.
I'll make a comment. I mean, I know John is obviously like, oh, let's
Matt,
talk.
Max, just hold on 1 second.
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, just discussing a motion.
Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I'll make this brief. I mean, like I first of all, Al, I think, towing is an unfortunate, a necessary evil. And I think all the other members of the towing advisory board from previous years are pretty upstanding members of society. I think you guys, you have a tough job, like you have to be the bad guys every now and then. And I voted in the last board meeting to increase the rate for the towing companies. So I support like the idea of giving people a fair wage. I am obviously, against the criminal who's sitting in the room who openly has claimed that advanced towing is, has a gentleman's agreement with the county and has claimed that the Attorney General's office vindicated him for not having to provide the contract available at the time of the tow. It's not a true statement. The Arlington County Code says that you have to provide photographs or a call within 10 minutes of the tow. You have to provide photographs and you have to provide the contract. We've published publicly that he claims that he doesn't have to follow the county code. So I agree that there should be, my last comment is that I agree that there should be a balance between justice for the victims of the towing and for the businesses who have a right to protect their own property. So Al and the other towing companies, I believe that you guys act honorably and honestly. And I believe advanced towing is the evil in this room.
So I do 80%.
That's my comment.
Anybody else for public comments?
You have someone, Charles.
Charles, you have anything? Anything to help? Yeah.
I just like to add that the judge in his case didn't find it my favor. The judge actually threw him out of the courtroom because he couldn't pay himself. So I don't know who the criminal is, but I use the restroom.
Discussion, next steps, timeline. So planning a meeting for 2023. I don't know how you guys feel, but my thing is, I think we need to have more than one a year.
Most definitely.
I was thinking either quarterly or once every 6 months in the minimum, just because there's a lot to digest. I think we're not doing the public any justice. We're not doing you guys any justice. We're not doing the county any justice by just having one meeting a year. So I guess motion, do I do it? Or do we just plan a meeting out?
I think you can, yeah, and we'll just.
Only if you're adopting a calendar.
Right, because the,
Discussing.
the meeting is called by chair. So if you want to do 4 meetings, then just, we'll schedule it.
So do you have like a quarterly meeting or 6 months?
I mean, quarterly would be great. I do on the other boards is what, if something happens at the state level, I'll email you and you see when everybody's calendar is where, and then we can discuss it. So I think quarterly would be great if that's possible.
I would just say what is the goal of this group to, one thing is for sure, you all want the rate increase. So that's a really important thing. From my standpoint of this, as a citizen, like I want a more robust system around remedies. So, I mean, that to me would be a reason for me to continue, wanting to meet regularly, because we're going to be talking about that. And then, of course, I would then support a conversation talking about rate increases.
So I think that's one of the injustices that we've been doing with the TTAB with only having one a year, is that we haven't been balancing the needs of all of the people that we're supposed to be servicing. Me as the police representative, my thing is the county, right? So I think as we have these 3 entities, towers, the public, and the county sits there, it's kind of like the referee. And I think that we haven't been able to do what the TTAB was designed to do, which was to do exactly what you guys want to do, which is protect the towers, protect the citizens, and protect the county, and make sure everybody's doing, basically that everybody's functioning the way they're supposed to be functioning. I think that's, and giving the board the proper recommendations that they can then go vote on, that has a lot of information attached to it, that so they can do what they need to do.
Exactly.
Like,
The board is at as well, and it's not possible in government, but to the best extent possible, and if everyone can be happy at the end of the day.
Or
But we can try.
equally mad.
Equally bad is also better.
Yeah, I mean, the county does have mechanisms. They have they listen to the issues and they police them. Then the state has an issue. If they were found guilty, they can go to, what is it, $1,000 fine? That they can go to the state court and the tower can get fined $1,000. And if, a lot, I don't think it's even happened yet that I've heard of, because, I do a lot of work down in Richmond. But they do have stuff to do. If somebody's really think they're in the wrong, they have civil court, they have the police, and they have Richmond. I don't know, we talked about it 10 years ago, and I don't know how Bill and I feel about this. Meeting once every 6 months, the people, the 7 people that were found wrong, have three of us sit here and they tell their story, and that's 3 vote on the violation. I would give 7 toes back a year if it solved all my problems and I got a raise. That's a no-brainer.
Hey, Al, that's a fair point. Al, that's a fair point, but I just want to address the comment that I was thrown out of the courtroom, like during the last trial. The point is, I shouldn't have had to go to a courtroom as a citizen who had his car damaged by advanced towing. I shouldn't have had to go to a courtroom, right? Like, you should have had equal legs of justice protecting the business that I, trespassed on, the county who is enforcing the law, and the resident who had his car damaged. I shouldn't have had to be in a courtroom in the first place. And while John wants you to think that I couldn't behave myself, I was thrown out of the courtroom because I got up to talk to the lawyer because I didn't know what was happening. So the point is, we need to protect all 3 of the legs in the table here. We need to protect the towers, we need to protect the residents, and we need to protect the businesses. And there needs to be a balance between all 3 of them. And advanced towing and the people in the room right now are the people that are causing this balance to get thrown out of whack. So Al, I support you in your rate increase, and I am still coming after you, John. That is all.
Thank you, Matt.
all right, so I think we're set for quarterly. We'll have Caitlin send the states for the next meeting to discuss the next steps. And then,
Yeah, I think we're motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
John.
Second.
Yes, great job.
Okay.
Who's buying dinner?
Well, thank you.
John?
Hey, I can't afford it, Matt, so I can buy it. Money.
Keep hoping that they have.
Well, thanks, Taylor.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Charles.
Thanks, Casey. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Hey, no.